Not very often I'm lost for words. But after playing the game for today's planned review, which was supposed to be the worst ever commercial game released for the Amiga, it actually took me a little while to compose myself and fully comprehend what I witnessed on the screen. When talking about worst games on the system, most people think of titles like Dangerous Streets, Akira or Rise of the Robots. And don't get me wrong, they're all pretty bad, some more than others. I'm pretty sure that some of Amiga owners still have nightmares about their system purchase with Dangerous Streets. It was, after all, like going to a nice restaurant, ordering a nice juicy medium rare steak, and getting it served with a side of hot shit and a pint of warm bile. Believe it or not, but there's actually a game that's much worse. But before I cause any serious drama with what I'm going to talk about here, please hit those like and subscribe buttons below. It's just a couple of clicks for you, but helps me more than you know. Thanks. The game that we'll tackle today is prosoccer 2190. Most people, even if not interested in sport at all, know at the very least some basic rules of football. The game is played with a ball, there are 2 halves of 45 minutes each, 2 teams of 11 players plus substitutes, yellow and red cards, and a game is based around scoring goals. Prosoccer 2190 is a futuristic take on football, although shitteristic might be a better term, as you'll soon find out. Shitteristic as in so far off from original that it became shit. Anyway, first thing that will greet you upon launching the game is the title screen. It's not especially nice or well designed, but there's a short tune playing in the background, and you should not really judge the game by its title screen. So I didn't, but it definitely spoke to the quality of the product at hand, or lack thereof. And then you get into the menu. It covers most of the screen with huge white OLED burning page that has all available options written in tiny font in the top left. It's not a great look on the game, but perhaps the gameplay makes up for it all, right? Now, this is the point where you may notice that there's no single player, multiplayer, match, start, or any other choice other than game on that would suggest getting into the actual game. So naturally, I went with game on. And then there were some screens uncomfortably popping one after another, with supposed scores showing up as if the teams involved were really playing. And since we're on the teams, in the future it seems they will all have their names taken straight out of cities they come from. So 1 per each city. Anyway, at this point it became obvious that I was doing something wrong and that I should have been able to pick the team to play somehow. So I went back to the beautiful and white as snow eye-scorching menu, putting those OLED pixels to work. After deciphering them for a little while, I found a spot where you could decide if you wanted to play as a particular team or coach it. Since I'm as pro as they come, I went for both, because why not? I picked New York to play and London to manage, although manage is a bit too big word for it. Then I chose the quarter length to 1 minute and was ready to go. Wait, what? A quarter and not a half? But who am I to argue? Perhaps that's what the future football is evolving to become. An action-filled, thrilling and fast game of 4 quarters. Perhaps. With all that done, I was ready to go. I may not be the best video game football/soccer player in the world, as I pretty much prefer management games over these, and I never really mastered sensible soccer, even though many of Amiga fans did back then. But I played my fair share of Sierra soccer, I've seen kickoff once or twice at friends' house, and to even things out, played some more modern games like FIFA 2. So while I'm not what you'd call a competent player, I am in the worst case an average to below average one, which quite honestly should be more than enough for a quick match or two. And the first match was supposed to be New York versus Houston, a home game. It's good to start with home advantage, as you can count on your supporters to raise your team spirits from the stands and help you get the ball rolling and goals landing. I was sure that I will be able to at the very least play for a tie. At first, I didn't even notice that my players started on both sides of the field. When I finally did, I instantly disregarded it, as, between 1990 when the game was released and 2190 when it's supposed to take place, rules of football may have evolved a little. It's a change, but not a game-breaking one. And then the game kicked off. And as soon as it did, it became painfully obvious what kind of a stinker I had on my hands. Prosoccer was a major one, and no amount of washing would be able to rid me of that stench for quite a while. But I took one for the team and pressed on. For one, whatever those little players did, however you wanna call it, it was not running with the ball. From where I sat and played, it looked like an odd mix of walking with roller skating, with an unexpected moonwalk here and there just to spice things up. Secondly, most rules of football like outs, free kicks, fouls, penalties don't exist in this title. And perhaps for the best, cause watching the game in motion is bad enough. Having it stop more often than necessary time and time again, then restarting to set jerky motion would be nausea-inducing nightmare. Third, there are no goals in the game. There are scores, but no goals. Not sure if it makes sense, but if you take a closer look at the footage, you'll notice that whenever someone scores, the ball just kinda bounces off the goal line, never actually getting in. And last but not least, the earlier mentioned quartz. Yep, the game is played in quartz. And each and every one of these has their own MVP. It's insane. Rules of regular football just don't exist in this game in any shape or form. There wasn't a single second when I felt like anything I did had any impact on what was happening on the screen. I mean, it was like I was there just to be present in the moment and witness this magnificent shit show unveiled before my own eyes. Well, just look at my goalkeeper. What is he doing? What's that? Is he trying to get the ball or is he just giving up? Hands up, letting the Lord take him because he can't take being part of this crap nugget anymore. Or here, where I magically discover if I press fire fast enough, the game would just randomly keep doing this shit. What's that? Is that tackling? Dancing? Or did both of these players suddenly develop consciousness and decided to have it all till there's just one of them standing? There has to be a reason after all why all these little dudes wear protective headgear, right? Fuck knows really. And the more I played the game, the less I cared, to be honest. And finally I tried the management. Or, well, the time to have the game as coach of London came upon, to be more precise. And it's no better. In fact, I'll leave the footage of it running until the end of this review, so you can see for yourself. It's equally as bad, and only difference between this and the player mode is that I did not have to be involved in the randomness that this game is. It just played itself, and it was as terrible as when I was in control. Or at the controller, as I was nowhere near in control of anything in Pro Soccer at any given moment really. But since we already know what this title isn't, so a properly working game, let's talk a little about presentation. The music is only ever present for a few short seconds on the title screen and in the menus. Other than that, they're silent. Dead silent. Pretty much the same way I was after I started playing. So I suppose music gets 10 out of 10 for being ideal representation of the experience player has in Pro Soccer? It's a killer. Sounds. Wow. Sounds. Okay, there are sounds during matches, but they're not very well synced with what's on the screen, so when ball hits or bounces off something, it's usually played either too fast or with a little delay. Normally I'd say it leaves you a bit disconnected from the experience, but as you probably figured out yourself, there's nothing really to be disconnected from here. So 10 out of 10 again? Anyway, funny enough, graphics themselves are not that bad in Pro Soccer. They really aren't. They're nowhere near the Amiga average, but your eyes won't bleed from looking at the game. Problems rise exponentially when things start moving. Now that's a real cause for a bleed out. Saying that looking at what's on the screen in motion is uncomfortable is putting things lightly. I don't believe there's more than 2 frames per each of 4 directions a character on the screen can be displayed, and it all looks as if it was running at 6 FPS at the very best. It's just trash. To summarize my thoughts and feelings about Pro Soccer 2190, I'd have to say that it's beyond garbage. It's one of, if not the worst game I have ever seen. And I've seen a lot of terrible titles. Because even if you really wanted to, this game cannot be played per se. Titles mentioned in the intro of this video, while being really bad for one reason or another, are actually playable, meaning that they are technically and functionally working. Good or bad, they respond in whatever way they do to player controls and have a semi-working game loop. In Pro Soccer 2190 it really makes no difference whatsoever if I'm at the controls or not. It's just gonna play itself the same. And it's a commercial title, and someone got money for it, and worst of all, I'm pretty sure some sad soul paid money for it too. It's a monstrosity that should have never seen the light of day, and it should burn in molten lava or be buried 20 feet deeper than the infamous ET game on Atari 2600, somewhere in a remote location in Nevada desert. Never to be found, spoke about or experienced ever again. My final score is 1 out of 10, and that's only because it makes no sense going below 1, it's the absolute bottom on my scale. So, and please take it to heart, avoid Pro Soccer 2190 at all cost. Thanks a lot for watching. If you liked the video, please hit those like and subscribe buttons below. It's a click here and click there for you, but helps me more than you know. And if you're in a more generous mood, you may want to consider joining my Patreon or a small donation. It would help me make more better content, replace my aging editing rig, and maybe even get a camera. Details are in the description below. For me, however, this is all, so have a good one, and I'll see you next time.